Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Invitation to Puzzles, the series where we try our very best to invite you into the wide world of puzzles. Today, we have a killer puzzle by Pwinn. So I look forward to seeing what we have going on here. We've done killer once before. I think this should also be a fairly reasonable starting point for doing killer type puzzles. But the way killer works, just to explain it to you, is that we have these cages here, and you can't repeat digits in cages. That's very important. So, for example, I could not do what you may well want to do, which is to do 3, 5, 1, 1. You'll notice even the software here will tell you you're not allowed to do that. It's a little bit of an unnatural rule, but you can't repeat digits in cages, but you have to make them sum to the number that's given. So you have to make these four numbers sum to 10. Those are the only rules, though, aside from normal Sudoku rules. As always, if you want to give it a try, there's a link down below. And I'm going to walk through it. So if you give it a try and you get stuck, then you can come back and have a look. Or if you want to just see, if you want to just watch me do it, no shame in that. That's definitely how I started, was to just watch people solve for a bit. All right, but I'll give some tips in a moment, but let's get started for now. All right. So killer cages have their own sort of mystique because there's all of these weird facts about them. Like that if you have a 4-cell 10 cage, it can only be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And the way to discover this kind of fact for yourself is to think about, okay, what is the minimum that 4 cells could possibly sum to, given that they all have to be different? And so you say, it could be 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the minimum, but that's already 10. So if I deviate at all from this, I can only make it bigger than the minimum. So it has to be 1, 2, 3, 4. I think more surprising, and my brain still doesn't find this super intuitive, but I've just sort of memorized it because I've done this enough, is that a 4-cell 11 cage has to be 1, 2, 3, 5. And the way to think about this is, again, well, if I minimized it, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I can't do that. I have to increase at least one of the digits from 1, 2, 3, and 4 by 1 in order to get up to 11. And in fact, basically, I have to increase exactly one of them by 1 to get up to 11, or I'm not adding up to 11. I'm adding up to something more than that. Well, which one am I going to increase by 1? Well, if I increase the 1, the 2, or the 3 by 1, it's not that it doesn't add to 11. It does. It's that I repeat a digit within the cage, and you cannot do that. And so the only way that works is for this to be 1, 2, 3, 5. A similar thing actually happens with this 29 cage, but not with minimums. If you think about it from, okay, well, the minimum is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 10. I need to somehow add 19 to that. That doesn't work out so well. But if you work down instead of up and think, okay, what's the maximum I could make this? It would be 9, 8, 7, 6. And now, admittedly, the math with 9, 8, 7, 6 is considerably harder to do in your head than the math with 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you look at it, these numbers add to 30. And so I need to reduce this total by 1 from the absolute maximum. And the only way that I can reduce it by 1 is to reduce one of the numbers by 1, but the only number I can reduce by 1 is the 6. If I reduce the 7, the 8, or the 9 by 1, I repeat a digit within the box. So in fact, 5, 7, 8, 9 is the only way to do this. Okay. Here's a tip for you that I think is going to be quite helpful if you don't like thinking about this. And I think, honestly, is helpful even if you do like thinking about this, which is that in the settings, if you've not done this, you'll have to do it yourself. There's a thing called a killer calculator, because these cages, these are called killer Sudoku. And so what that does is to provide you with this little thing right by the rules that tells you, hey, this is a sum to 29 and 4. The only thing that works is 5, 7, 8, 9. So in other words, without doing any of the words that I have said so far this video, you could just turn this tool on and look, and it will say, hey, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 1, 2, 3, 5, that's 5, 7, 8, 9. That's very helpful to have. And it's especially helpful to have for cages like this one, this 28 cage, where you'll notice actually there's 2 options for 28. Okay, and so again, I don't want to harp on this for too much because I've just told you there's a tool that lets you not think about this too much. But just if you've wondered why are there 2 ways to do 28, it's because the maximum 6, 7, 8, 9 is 2 more than the total 28 that I'm going for. So I have to subtract either 2 from 1 digit or 1 from 2 digits. And if you think about how I'm going to do that, well, I could subtract 2 from 1 digit, and I could subtract 2 from the 6, which will give me the 4, 7, 8, 9 option. I could subtract 2 from 7, which will give me the 5, 6, 8, 9 option. Or I could subtract 1 from 2 different digits, in which case the only 2 different digits you could choose are the 6 and the 7, which will give you the 5, 6, 8, 9 option again. And that's just because that happens to be this subtracting 1 from 6 and 7 happens to give you the same thing as subtracting 2 from 7. It's just the things end up in different places, but it all works out the same. Anyway, point being, you can actually see why these things are true if you want. But this tool is very handy, and I'll show you a few other nice things that happen as we go along while we work with this. Okay, so it's worth noting there's a few other cells if you hunt around. In fact, maybe there's one other cage in the grid that has one option, which is this 16 cage. It's always 7, 9 to do 16 and 2. So this at least is not 7 or 9. There's a couple cages that have 2 options. Like these 15 cages, there's 2 options. They're 6, 9, and 7, 8. So that's useful to note because it actually tells me that within this column, the 6, 7, 8, and 9 are in these 4 cells. This is a quadruple, if you want. A naked quadruple, if you want to be more technical. And so everything else within the column can only be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because we've already used our 6, 7, 8, 9s. Okay. There are a few of those that don't actually work. I'll talk about that in a second. Actually, let's talk about it now. 5 in a 2-cell 10 cage is a big problem. And the problem is the other digit you want is a 5. And so, in fact, actually, these can only be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 in a 2-cell 11 cage is a problem because 1 would go with 10. Okay. Now, if you look over here, you'll notice actually there's some more repercussions. Because 2 in a 2-cell 11 cage is totally fine if you look at the little handy-dandy guide, except the problem is that 2 goes with 9, and we already have a 7-9 pair in the row, because we decided the things we had to put in the 16 cage were 7 and 9. So no 2 to be had here. And likewise, 4 doesn't work, because 4 would go with 7, and we've already got a 7 in the row, so that's not a 4. And so, in fact, this digit is a 6 or an 8, depending. Okay. If you look at things with 2 options, you'll find also the 5 has 2 options, which are 1, 4, and 2, 3. And the 6 has 2 options, which are 1, 5, and 2, 4. Okay. And if you want, this is not strictly necessary, but if you want, you could notice things like, for example, these 2 cells that go with a 1, 2, 3, 4 in a 10 cage, they have to go with 6, 7, 8, 9. But there are perhaps more interesting things to notice before we get too far down that rabbit hole. You might also notice something about quintuple or quadruple floating around this box or various other things. But the two things that sort of leapt out to me at the very start of the puzzle to do concern these two cages and these two cages. And the one in box 9 is the easier of the two, and the one in column 1 is more complicated. But let me point out what's happening here is that when you go through and think, okay, what are all my things that have two options? You might look at this 14 and say, that has two options, 5, 9, and 6, 8. Okay, maybe I'll mark it. Okay. And if you're like me, then what you might very well do is say, oh, there's a 7, 9 in the box, and then just keep moving along. But in fact, actually, the fact that there's a 9 in the box tells me this is not actually 5, 9. It's got to be 6, 8. That's actually the only option. And so even though there's normally two options for 14, when you pair it with a 16, it only has one option. So this becomes 7, 9 and 6, 8. And so that gets me a 5 here, which I'll fill in a second. Okay, so sometimes one cage total will sort of lock another. Okay, here's the fancier version of that. Are this 6 cage and this 5 cage genuinely have two options, but they don't have two options together. And that's because if I make this 6 cage 2, 4, something disastrous happens to the 5 cage. Namely, the 5 cage becomes 1, 3, because I can't use a second 2, 4 in the column. But that's a pretty big problem, owing to the fact that 1 plus 3 isn't 5. So I can't actually make the 6 a 2, 4. And that's really bizarre, actually, if you think about it and you don't sort of shift your point of view. It feels like, why shouldn't I be able to make this 2, 4? Like, I guess I can kind of see why, but like, why would I think to check that? It's a little bit weird. I think there's a way to think about both of these deductions that actually fits perhaps a little bit better. I realized orange was like the worst color there. I'll make these green. Namely, whenever you have two killer cages that see each other, that is, those killer cages exist within either one row, one column, or one box, you can also combine them. And so instead of thinking of the 16 and 14 cage separately as a 2-cell 16 cage and a 2-cell 14 cage, you could think of these as a 4-cell 30 cage. Okay, that's actually a little bit worse in terms of the amount of information that you have. But one thing that's true about a 4-cell 30 cage is that it's unique. It has to be 6, 7, 8, 9, which we actually showed when we computed the maximum of a 4-cell cage, namely the maximum is 6, 7, 8, 9. And so if you think about it that way, if you think about it as combining these two things, then what your brain will come up with is, oh, hey, this thing is unique, and it's maybe not so surprising it has to work out this way. Okay. The same thing actually happens in this column. Neither of these things is unique separately, but if you combine them, it's a 4-cell 11 cage. And actually, the second thing we did in the puzzle was to note that a 4-cell 11 cage is always 1, 2, 3, 5. Namely, it never has a 4 in it. And if you want to think again about why it never had a 4 in it, it's because, again, when I tried to think about how I was going to go up 1 from the minimum of 10, the only thing I could change was the 4. Any other change led to a repeated digit. And so what that does is that strips the 4 out of all of these cells. And, well, if you strip the 4 out of these cells, well, now this can't have a 2 in it anymore because, 2 plus 1 and 2 plus 5, neither of them is 6. And likewise, when I strip the 4 out of this, I now can't have a 1 in it because it doesn't add to 5. And so I get a 1, 5 and a 2, 3 down here. Okay, so sometimes adding cages together will get you more information than you get solely by looking at the cages themselves. Okay, this is perhaps a long intro, but it gets us a lot of information. So this is a 2, 3 cage, so that's not a 3 anymore. Now this is a 5 and a 6. So now there's no 6 in my 15 cage, so now it's 7, 8. And this one, which now can't have a 7, 8 in it, is now a 6, 9. We can take the 1 and the 5 out of my 7 cage, and we can take the 1 out of this cell as well. The 6, 8 down here sees that cell and makes that cell a 5, which removes 5 from all of those, and indeed 5 from all of these. That seems unable to be 5 if I look at it. In fact, actually, now in this box, now these digits are, in fact, a 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple. They need to contain the digits 1, 2, 3, and 4 exactly in some order, because it's 4 cells that only have 4 possible values. And so this cell can't be 1, 2, or 3. It would either be a second 1, a second 2, or a second 3 in the box, so it can only be a 5. And so we can go ahead and fill out that 5. And we can notice things like, these are a 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple in column 4 as well. And if we want to practice our pencil mark stuff, we can notice it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple. So everything else in the column is not 1, 2, 3, 4. It's all from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That one's not a 5 or a 6, I'll mark. But also within that 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple, this is maybe the more interesting part, the 4 is up here, right? Neither of these is 4. So one of these two cells needs to be 4. If neither of these was 4, we'd have a 1, 2, 3 quadruple. And you should not, in your Sudoku puzzles, as a general rule, have a 1, 2, 3 quadruple. That's usually a problem. Okay, but that means that the 4 within my 10 cage is in the right half of the cage, so it's not in the left half of the cage. Because remember, one of the rules of killer Sudoku was that we could not repeat digits within a cage. So if you know there's a 4 in this half, you know there's not a 4 in this half. Okay. And you can repeat that logic with this quadruple, and say this quadruple is a 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple, but now the 4 lives in this column, which means that's now not a 4. Okay, and so now that's a 2, 3 pair, for example. I bet we can resolve the 2, 3 pair, but I'll do that in a second. I was going to point out something. What was I going to point out? Oh, I was going to point out just a little bit about notation, which is that by tradition, corner marks are used in boxes. So usually a corner marked 4 means the 4 in this box is in one of these places. And I sometimes will do highlighting or whatever if I'm doing a variation of that. You can see that in some of the other puzzles I've done. I don't usually bother with that for killer cages. I just accept that if a corner mark is in a killer cage, I probably am talking about the killer cage unless I'm talking about the box like over here. And this is admittedly slightly sloppy, but I think it usually, hopefully, won't be the cause of confusion. But if you want, you can always sort of, if you want to be super fastidious about your corner marks, you can always highlight it to say, hey, this is a weird corner mark. Don't take it literally. Okay, I mentioned there's something else you could see. That can't be a 2, because 2 goes with 5, and this digit can't be a 5 either because of the box or the column or whatever. So this is a 3 going with a 4, which then makes that a 2. So that takes 2 out of all of those things. Now one of these two is 2. I'm not bothering to corner that one of these is 2, because what it would tell me is that that cell isn't 2, but I've already marked that that cell isn't 2. That's why. Now these are a 1, 2, 4 triple. And again, what that means is they contain the digits 1, 2, and 4. So that's a 3. And so that's a 1. And we get to sort of bounce these around here like that. So now we've got all of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the grid. And so this cell is what we call a naked single. And if you've ever wondered what a naked single is, one way to say it is that if you just typed every digit into it and asked Sven, the Sudoku software, what is this digit? Sven will tell you what the digit is. Namely, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Now, sometimes Sven won't tell you completely. Like here, Sven won't completely tell you, but you can notice there's a 7-8 pair in the box. So after eliminating the 6 digits that Sven tells you can't be here, it's also not 7 or 8. It's 9. By the way, if your digits don't turn red in your grid, it's a setting also in the advanced settings. Oh, wait, maybe it... Sorry, no, it's in gameplay. It's conflict checker. I think it's on by default, but if it's not on for you for some reason, you can click this on here, and that will put on the little red highlighting when something sees something by Sudoku. I find that to be incredibly useful as far as these things go because, well, it's hard to notice these things sometimes. Okay, and so now this digit, if you look at it, it now can be nothing but 4. It's not 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. So this is just a 4. Okay. So now within this column, these are a 7, 8 pair. I'll go ahead and mark. This is a 6, 7, 8, 9, but I don't know which 6, 7, 8, 9. This is just a 7, 8. If you look at the box, it's the other 7, 8. So maybe that's not immediately useful. I guess one thing that is useful is that this 3 here has actually told me something about the 10 cages. Namely, it's told me there's no 7 in either of those cells, because 3 plus 7 is the way to add to 10. That's not going to work so well. Okay. What else can I do? Those two is 9. I'm just sort of mentally doing a quick scan of cages. This 7 cage now actually only has 2 options. I'm not sure how useful that is, but I'm going to write it in anyway. So it's only got 2 options now because this one is not possible. By the way, this software is very nice in terms of letting you tick things like, oh, I know it's not 3, 4. I don't have to look at that anymore. So this one is 1, 6, or 2, 5. And it keeps that stored sort of by cage. And so then you could say, yes, that's not a 5, so that's not a 2. All good things to think about. This 9 cage actually has some of its options stripped away. So it doesn't have a 6 in it, and it doesn't have an 8 in it. This is another way you can say it's not that thing. Very helpful if the cage has sort of a lot of flexibility bouncing around it, because it'll mark out all the options. In this case, it's a 2-cell cage, so there's only 2 of them. But it'll mark out all the options that don't work. So if there's like an 8 in 3 different combinations, it'll get rid of all of them. And you do that just by double clicking. You can also single click to say something definitely is in there. Okay, so now this is 2, 7, or 4, 5. And if you want, you can take a second and think about what we learned earlier and see if you can resolve these 2 cages by thinking about them together. I will give you a second to notice what happens. Okay, there was your second. And the problem is this being 2, 5 doesn't work. Namely, this being 2, 5 destroys both of my options for the 9 cage. And so I'm looking at these 2 options, and I'm seeing, there is my 2, 5. That's one of the 2 options for the 7 cage. Well, if I put 2, 5 up here, I would do that and that. And that would be very, very bad. We don't want to do that. So I can't make this 2, 5. It has to be 1, 6. And now once I make this 1, 6, well, if I put this back and just actually write out, okay, it's not 6, not 8. Oh, in fact, actually, I still don't know whether this is 2, 7 or 4, 5. So it's one of those. 2, 7, 4, 5. We'll take it. That's not a 2, so that's not a 7. Okay, that is cool. Okay, what else are we doing now with our lives? One thing I notice that I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be useful or not, but it might be useful. I think it might. Is that I can ask myself the question, where's the 5 in box 6? Okay, and basically anytime you fill in a digit, it's worth asking if that has any interesting repercussions on Sudoku. Now, by pure unadulterated Sudoku, this is not an interesting question because there's 2 5s looking into this box, which give you 4 possible places for the 5, and that's maybe not the most exciting of possibilities. But remember, 5 can't go in a 2-cell tent cage because it would be 5 plus 5. So in fact, the 5 lives in one of these 2 cells. And again, this corner mark means, hey, within this box, one of these 2 cells is 5. And that looks over and says, well, at least that cell's not 5. Okay, and so now, looking backwards, that says one of these 2 cells is 5, and they're both interesting. If this is 5, notice this cage, which is a 9-cell cage. You might notice there's no total on this 9-cell cage, but that's because it is obligated to contain the digits 1 through 9 once each because of the no repeats rule. If that's a 5, it means that's a 5. Also, I will freely admit that I've counted this cage in my head 3 times before now, and every time I've done it, I've gotten that there were 7 cells in this cage. So sometimes counting is hard. But anyway, so if this is 5, it places that as 5. And if this is 5, it then fixes the 28 cage as the 6, 5, 6, 8, 9 version and not the 4, 7, 8, 9 version. Okay, either way, we do know that 8 and 9 are both in here somewhere. Is there any digit that's super restricted on where it can appear in here? I don't think so. Like this 7, 8, if I look at it, here's a weird Sudoku thing that happens with killer cages. Where does this 7, 8 go in box 5? Well, it doesn't go in the row, but it doesn't go in the cage either, and neither of those cells can be 7 or 8. So this digit I know is one of those 2. I just don't know which one yet. So I'm probably supposed to think about some other thing. Although I am perhaps running out of some other thing to look at. Okay, in this box, it's just the low digits we have left. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4. That one's not a 1. That one's not a 4. Oh! Never mind. I was supposed to look at the 7, 9. That cell has become a naked 8, is the only thing that goes here. So we can rule 8 out of all of those cells. Sometimes Zeta has to do Sudoku. I like to think I'm not the worst about doing Sudoku, but I'm not the best about it either. Now, we can do all of our usual things now. That's not 8 anymore. So now one of these 2 is 8. So now that's not 8. So now that's not 2. If you want to bounce around. And in fact, if you actually look at this row now, you actually know the 2 within the row of necessity goes in one of these 2 cells. I don't know exactly what to do with that, but hey, true enough. The 2 has to go in one of those cells. Also, we know that these are from 1, 2, 3 by the row, but that's also interesting within the box. Because it tells me that the 3 within this triple the 1 within this triple is down here. So that's not a 1. Basically, you're looking at overlapping triples. You're overlapping that triple and this triple. So this triple in the row and this triple in the box, and seeing, well, these digits are both the other one if you have these two out of 1, 2, 3. So they're the same, and so that's not 1, basically, if you want. So these are 2, 3. I realize that I have now basically done something that I could also have done by looking at the 1, 4 pair running down the column. Okay, what else are we doing? I am noticing if this is a 2, then I have to put a 2 in row 5, and it becomes very complicated because this digit only has 2 places it can go in row 5, and that one's not a 2 because there's a 2, 3 pair looking at it. So that is somewhat interesting, which made me squint over here, but not quite see what I could see out of this morass. So if this is a 2, that's a 2. And if this is a 2, now I've got to shove the 2 into this cage somewhere, but I've got a few options for that. So maybe that's okay. Okay. I can tell you a thing that is quite interesting about this 28 cage. Namely, the thing I can tell you about this 28 cage is that it is not 4, 7, 8, 9. And the reason I know it's not 4, 7, 8, 9 is that this 7, 9 isn't in it. And how do I know that? Let me show you a couple different ways to think about this. So the way I think is maybe the easiest to think about it is this 7, 9 lives in the 29 cage. Well, where does it live in the 29 cage? Well, it might be tempting to say it's there. I don't really know if it's there, but I know it's in one of those two. But if that's the case, that 7, 9 is here and it's in one of those two. That means it's not in the 28 cage. So therefore, this cage can't have both 7 and 9 in it. So it must be that this cage is one of the things that doesn't have both 7 and 9, and so it can only be this one, is the answer. The other way to think about it is how many 7, 8, 9s are there in these two columns together? Well, there's 6 total, and I can count them. Namely, there's 3 of them here. There's 1 of them here. And therefore, there's at most 2 of them here, because we've already counted to 4, and we're only counting to 6. Well, if there's at most 2 of them here, this can't be 7, 8, 9. Right. And so, in fact, what we get out of that is that this is 5, 6, 8, 9. And we know the 5 isn't over there. And so now we run into the full-blown dangers of reckless pencil marking, which is that I have this 5 corner marked here in the box and here in the cage. I'm not going to mark it for that reason, but in fact, I'm going to remove this mark for that reason. But you can see sometimes it does hurt you. But that is quite nice because now it has given me a 6, 7, 8, 9 quadruple in column 7. Okay. I should point out, constructors usually will, when they're trying to get you to find a quadruple, especially in a killer puzzle, that quadruple is usually going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 6, 7, 8, 9, because those two are much easier to spot than some others. Of course, there's others like 2, 4, 6, 8 that will come up all the time. But you're more rarely in a human-made puzzle gonna see a 1, 2, 7, 9 quadruple, which you'll see that a lot in like the New York Times Sudoku or whatever. But you're not gonna see it so often. You're usually gonna see things like we've seen the 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple a bunch. You'll see the 6, 7, 8, 9 quadruple a lot. So you can be on the lookout for those when you see cells marked like this that, hey, maybe the setter is trying to tell me to think about this collection of digits. Okay, and so the consequence of all of that is that that digit is a 1 and that digit is a 6. Okay, so that's not a 6. And now that has repercussions on where the 6 is in this box. because I now can't put a 6 in either 10 cage. So now the 6 is in one of these two cells. Which is also going to mean the 4 in this box is now forced, no pun intended, into row 5, because, again, I can no longer put 6s in here, and those two just can't be 4. So now I have a sort of 4 floating along this row. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream or something. That's not a 4. Don't really know a whole lot about it beyond that, but hey, at least it tells me that's not a 4. Which I guess tells me, if I want to just practice my corner marking, it tells me one of these is a 6, but I guess that's just reiterating the information that it tells me that one of these two is a 4. So, maybe not maximally useful. I guess maybe I should mark this as therefore a 7, 8, 9, I guess is worth marking. So we've got 3 of 6, 7, 8, 9 in this row already. It's perhaps worth noting I secretly / not so secretly know that none of these are 6, 7, 8, 9. And how do I secretly, not so secretly know that none of these are 6, 7, 8, 9? It is because I have counted in my head the 6, 7, 8, 9s in box 6. Okay. And again, this is the kind of thing where if the setter of the puzzle is good, then you should be counting things like 6, 7, 8, 9s and 1, 2, 3, 4s. You should not be randomly trying to count like 2, 6, 7, 9s or something within a box, hopefully. So, namely, you might say, okay, well, I only see 2, 6, 7, 8, 9s, namely those two. But secretly, there's also a 6, 7, 8, 9 in each of these 10 cages. Because if I don't put a 6, 7, 8, 9 in here, well, you can see that's going to lead to immediate disaster for the 10 cage. If I don't put a 6, 7, 8, 9 in it, because it's going to have no fill. So there is a 6, 7, 8, 9 in here, and there's a 6, 7, 8, 9 in here. So that's actually all of the 6, 7, 8, 9s that live within the box. And so these can't be 6, 7, 8, 9. They can only be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And of course, I know the 4 and 5 are there. But that's also interesting because it also forces me to think about the fact that I've got 1 short of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s, and I'm 1 short of 6, 7, 8, 9s living through here. That does a tiny bit, I notice, which is that now in row 5, I've locked 6 out of all but box 5. Namely, one of these now has to be a 6. And that rules 6 out of that cell, at least. Which I said was a tiny thing, but it's even actually tinier, I guess, than I thought it was. Yeah, it's tinier even than I at first thought it was, because 6 could also go there. Yeah, so it's maybe not the best deduction that Sudoku kind has ever seen, but what are you going to do? They can't all be bangers, I suppose. Where is 7 in this row? And how long has this been here? I guess is a good question. So I guess it's been here forever. By this whole trick about 10 cages, the 3's locked out of the 10 cage, so is the 7. But then I guess it's been here since we identified that this was not, wasn't a 7, 8, 9 in here. And that was the consequence that we were supposed to immediately see, that I did not immediately see, was that now 7 in row 4 is now locked here exactly. And now that's going to do irreparable damage to the puzzle, because now you see that now that's an 8. And now this has to be a 7, because we have to put a 7 in row 5 somewhere. That's going to be a 7 and an 8. So now these are a 6, 9 pair. So now that's not a 2 anymore because of the 8. So now that's a 2 because of the 1, 4 pair there. That's ruled 2 out of here, which now if you remember, where does 2 go in this box? Not in the row and not in the cage, rules it out of all but that cell. So that's a 2 and that's a 3, and that's a 2 and that's a 3. And now these are a 1, 2, so now that's a 3, and that seems to be a 4 and a 2 and a 1. This seems not to be a 7. That seems not to be a 7. That seems not to be a 7. Okay, this seems not to be a 2. Not a 1, 2, 4. Not a 2 or a 3. Okay. Okay, I'm just noticing this digit is the one that goes here and wondering if I know anything about that that's useful. And I think the answer is no, but I also think I now know where the 6 goes in this box. This was probably a given before as well, actually. Why did I previously say the 6 had to be... Oh, I didn't notice when I locked the 6 out of here. I see. So I previously separately argued the 6 doesn't go in the 10 cages and the 6 doesn't go here. But actually that combination of facts just actually placed to the 6, if you would like. So now that's a 9 and a 1 and a 6 and a 4, which gives me a 4 and a 1 and a 5 and a 1. Which now places the 5 in this 28 cage, gives me an 8-9 pair here, which places that as 6 and 9, like that. That's not a 5 anymore, so that's not... Don't listen to me, that's not a 5 anymore, so that's not a 4 anymore. Okay, so now this is an 8 or a 9. I don't know that... Oh, I've got an 8-9 pair in this column, which has made that a 7, which has, of course, made that not a 7, which has made that an 8-9 pair in the column, which has made that a 7 and a 9. I might have been able to fill those in much earlier if I had done if I'd paid more attention when I was counting. Okay, so we get all of that stuff, and now within this row, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that is a 9. Looking up means one of these two is a 9, or sorry, does not mean one of those two is a 9. Don't listen to me. This row, what's it's missing? It's missing a 5, a 6, and a 4, I think. Okay, good. All right, you would think I would know by now what was going on over here. I guess I know what these digits are, huh? These are a 2 and an 8. Okay, that's good. And so there are 2, 8, and I know the order, which now gives me the 5 and the 4. I thought it was weird that this wasn't filled in. Okay, which gives me the 1 and the 9 and the 8 and the 9 and the 8 and the 6 and the 5 and the 9 and the 7. Okay, and so now this can only be 3, 7 now. If you look at the row, it can't... Basically, the way I scanned this, your mileage may vary. The way I scanned it was there's got to be a high digit and it's not 6, 8, or 9, so it's got to be 7. Or you could just ask where 7 goes in this box, or what is this 10 cage? There's a bunch of different ways you could do it. The point is this box has to, or this cage has to be 3, 7, and we know that's the 3 and that's the 7, which then gives me the 4 and the 5, gives me the 1 and the 2 and the 1, again by Sudokuing into there. This is now a naked something. It's a 9. Let's see. This is a naked something as well. It's a 3. Let's see. One of these is a 2, and it's not that one, so it's that one. And that's a 7. Let's see. And then we can just sort of finish, hopefully. 2, 3. Let's see. One of these two is a 4. And the other is an 8. Okay, there we go. These two are, one of them is a 2, and the other is a 5. So we know that they go in that order, which gives me the 6 and the 4, which gives me the 6. And our last digit here is a 3. Beautiful, beautiful puzzle there to Pwinn. And thank you all for joining me. Do let me know if you learned a new trick from this episode. I'd love to see in the comments what you picked up on. I do like to see what the audience is sort of picking up on from this, so I can sort of tweak the videos in the future, try and adjust the style. It's still a relatively new series as I'm recording this, so I'm still getting the feel for exactly like what is the right level, what helps people the most, and that sort of thing. So let me know what you got out of this. I hope you enjoyed the puzzle. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed this. Consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. And I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.